Oi oi Sabloy. My name is Tony Coleman, also known as London Electricity, and welcome to the Fast Soul Music Podcast, episode 11. Now you guys have contributed so much for this episode. We're going to go in on imposter syndrome, and you've got a lot to say about it. And we're kicking off with this. Saying I can't stand the pain, stand the pain. Would be a lie. Couldn't see the light now. Oh, it's in front of me. Hugh Hardie on the remix. And even though it hurts right now, it hurts right now. Mountain featuring Kojo. I'm free. On the Hospital label. So glad I'm free, so glad I'm free. So glad I'm free, so glad I'm free. Incoming brand new Kimyan Law on the +++ label. Tune called Waminifu. And Nico Kimyan Law is on fire at the moment. A lot of amazing tunes coming through. And I put a little message out saying, tell me about your experiences with imposter syndrome, and so many interesting answers back. And this came about because I did a podcast for Finish More Music, which came up this week, interviewed by Keith Mills, who runs the course. And I don't know how I ended up down a rabbit hole talking about kind of fear and my experience of fear with being creative, and then like imposter syndrome. So I just thought it'd be interesting for us to chat about it. So here we go. And Aya, who IYRE. Now I've played some of his tunes on Goldfat. Wicked new producer. So he says, coming from Sri Lanka, I've always felt like an outsider, an imposter. When my music gradually started getting a bit of attention, I always questioned if it was for my music or because I'm making drum and bass from a region which is not quite famous for the genre. I later decided to focus on making the best tunes that I can possibly make, and it went away after I released the EP. Last year was a constant struggle. Big ups, brother. Hope you're having a wonderful day. So yeah, I totally understand that, and I think a lot of people assume that people only like them not for what they do, but for who they are, what they look like, where they're from, etc. Did you like that? Did you like the way I did that transition? I did. Right, brand new dub Phizix. Another producer who is on fire, releasing his own material. This is called Get It, and I just got it from George's Bandcamp. And I advise you to do the same. 3 amazing tunes on the latest EP, on the latest drop. So yeah, Aya, I can only tell you that for my part, I just played your tune because I liked it. Simple as. Had no idea where you were from, and this is the way I've always rolled with music. I've always played music because I like it. I've never played it because of who the person is who's made it, whether they're male, female, what their ethnicity is, anything to do with that. Whether they identify themselves as something completely unique, it doesn't really matter because, well, it doesn't matter at all. It's only about the music. So yeah, keep on making the good tunes and feel the fear and do it anyway. Phizix, another gentleman whose music I have played, says, yeah, a lot of ideas that we create on our own. Now this is true, we are only the sum of our experiences and inspiration. And he goes on to say, inspiration comes from all things, even non-music related. And it keeps me from putting all I've written sometimes, because I fear being compared to others, especially when as an artist, you're trying to be your own artist and not a tribute band. That's another very interesting message for me. Because sometimes we're influenced by those around us, by the tunes that we love, by something that's happened to us or something we've heard. In Western music, which most drum and bass is Western music, there are only 12 notes. I know that in some places around the world there's quarter tones, so there's a lot more than that. But usually with dance music, electronic music, you get the 12 notes. And then you have to decide what order you're putting the notes in, what instrument or what synthetic sound or whatever is playing the notes, and what the rhythm is. And then you put beats on it, which aren't really notes. So yeah, it's a big thing for fear and feeling like you're an imposter. Because somebody's used those particular notes in that order, in that rhythm, at some point in history. And I felt like a bit of an imposter then when I just mixed this tune in because the mix wasn't very good. So that makes me a bit of an imposter of a DJ. But I think I might get over it. This is by Wingz. It's called Ethereal. It's on Overview. Very, very fine EP. Advise you to check it out. I'll play something on the next podcast from it as well. Message in from Synth Universe. Yep, I recently got into a really good job on the shopping department for a very important company, and I just feel like I shouldn't be there. I often wonder why I was hired, and I get worried. I'm still trying to process it. Thanks for your message, Cynthia. Yeah, I mean, absolutely, it takes time to process these feelings. I mean, it's taken me 61 years, and I still feel like an imposter. I'm not just saying that, I actually do. I feel like an imposter. I just feel like I'm sticking out like a sore thumb. And I know that that's okay. If you weaponise that, you can use it for a positive thing, but sometimes I just get tired of that and feel afraid. And you know what? It's okay. Champagon says, all the time I feel like an imposter, especially when I first started DJing and when I got my first gigs. To overcome it, and what still helps to this day, is I think to myself, I wouldn't be playing this show or doing this thing right now if I wasn't good enough. I'm obviously good enough, so let's get to it. And that is true, but it's really hard to feel that when you're feeling just like, for whatever reason, you shouldn't be doing this, you don't deserve to be doing this. It's hard to think that you actually do. Something that's helped me recently that I've read in a couple of different places is that everyone else around you who, like for me, you know, I'll go and do a gig with loads of DJs. My assumption is that everyone else does deserve to be DJing there. They know what they're doing and they haven't got any fear. That's my assumption. And that's my head trying to put me in a position of fear. So what's helped me is understanding that actually everybody, unless they're a complete psycho, does have doubts, self-doubts, does have fears, and does have a dose of imposter syndrome. It's just that some people don't let it completely ruin their lives. Some people aren't overwhelmed by it, and it's the overwhelm that makes it so tricky. Incoming, Dan Guidance and Alex Barton on Mathematica Records. This is called Siren. Jez Armstrong writes in, says, pretty much every job I've ever had, I feel like I don't belong, even when I do really well. Now there's a thing. You see, positive reinforcement, positive experiences, and logic sometimes do absolutely nothing to help us get rid of these fears and these insecurities. I'll tell you a classic example from my history making tunes. It was when I used to make new drum and bass tunes, and this still happens. It happened actually when I was in Tulum. I was playing one of my new tunes out, and I'd be in a set, you know, playing all these tried and tested records, knowing what they do, knowing how they hit, how they go off. I put in one of my new tunes, really, really excited, and I'll be mixing it in my headphones, and it would sound to me so weak compared to everything else that not only would I not play it and test it out, I would be prejudiced against that tune for the rest of my DJing career. And consequently, there are tunes that I've made that I have never DJ'd out. Other DJs sometimes play them and tell me that's a really good tune, you know, I enjoy playing that out. I can't play that tune out. I know it's illogical. I know that people like these tunes, and perhaps if I tried to mix them in on a different day with a different tune, it might have sounded okay to me, and I wouldn't have got this massive imposter syndrome about these tunes. But so this is something I have to deal with. This is something I have to try and surrender every day to enable me to actually work in the studio and make music, play gigs, do these podcasts. I know that for the rest of my life I will always feel fear. I will always feel like a complete fake, like an imposter. And I know that that's okay. It doesn't make it much easier. Now this is unbelievably brilliant from the High Contrast 20th anniversary version of True Colours. This is arguably the tune that kicked it all off. This was a bootleg that Bop did years ago of Passion by High Contrast. And it is brilliant. I've been playing it out for years, and I'm so glad that Lincoln decided to include it on this album. Big shout out to Alex Bot. Now I know I said something a little bit controversial just now, that I think unless you're a complete psycho, if you're a creator, that you have to work with fear and imposter syndrome. That's typically generalising of me, but it kind of is. It is what, maybe not that if you don't feel like an imposter that you're automatically a psycho. That's probably a little bit strong, but it's the only way that in my stupid head I can process that. Genesis Audio says, only recently I got back into music production for the last 2 years because I felt like an imposter. The reason being I'm not trained on any type of musical instruments, although I hold a degree in music technology. Brilliant, that I've got to say, that's amazing. It's fantastic, isn't it? Because when we feel like an imposter, we don't look at what we got, we just look at what we haven't got. You've got a degree in music technology, and I know loads and loads of musicians who are trained on musical instruments, who don't know anything about music technology, who feel like an imposter because of that. So Genesis says, how have I overcome this? The truth is I haven't. I've just got older and changed my mindset too. I can't and won't be able to please everyone. That is very, very important. And in all honesty, it's true what they say. You can't stop... hang on. Yeah, here we go. In all honesty, it's true what they say. You stop caring as you get older. I still have my days where I feel like I'm imposing, but I push through. That's why over the next couple of months, I've set up to finally release my music independently, just to stop sitting on music and second-guessing myself. Big up for talking about this subject, Tony. Another really interesting point, as you get older, you do stop caring, or you care a little bit less about what people think about you, and by definition, what they think about what you do. Yeah, I understand that. As I get older, I do care less about what people think about me and what I do, but it kind of, sometimes it just creeps up, bites me on the arse.
No, you couldn't stride with my shoes on. I just woke up and got to move on. I was never one to wait around for too long.
This is brand new, it's Mindstate and Verbz.
No, you couldn't stride with my shoes on.
Get a move on.
Just woke up and got to move on. I was never one to wait around for too long. There's someone else before I blame myself. Bear the weight of the world before I say I felt. The taste of hate still, it's lurking in a place where my brain dwells. Strange spells though the days swell. I need money in this grey hell. Take L's and bounce back, hope the tape sells. Run the race, count stacks while you chase tell. I've been living in the days, know the haze well. Few wrapped up on the plate and some bait scales. Seen people change on the chase still. Told me that she liked the taste, she ain't the same girl. You be amazed, life's amazed that we stray with our pain felt. Without aim on the page, I lay the same tell. Made a way and I ain't fazed by what they say, and felt the strain of desperation on my vertebrae decaying. Trying to carry all my casualties while casually complaining. And I don't think that there's a lane for me to stay in. I'm in the fast lane, slowly overtaken. Was in a dark place, lonely on the pavement. Cozy with a stogie and a hole for me to stay with. Was in a dark place, lonely on the pavement. Cozy with a stogie and a hole for me to stay with.
Absolutely lovely. Production from Mindstate. Vocals from Verbz. And El Salvador. A little gem here.
Move right, but I do wrong.
They say nobody knows everything.
I just woke up and got to move on.
And I know plenty that other people don't.
Move right, but I do wrong. No, you couldn't stride with my shoes on. I just woke up and got to move on. I was never one to wait around for too long.
Nobody knows everything, and I know plenty that they don't. That is huge. As long as you can be yourself, and I have to tell me this every day, tell myself this, as long as I could be myself and be true to that, I can't be an imposter, and then people can take me or leave me as they find me. This is lovely. This is Finnadrift on Gold Fat. This is called Sipping Away. And Inside D&B says, I get this from time to time, judging my actual ability against what I think, in capital letters think, are other people's expectations, or even worse, judgment of my ability. And that is massive, because we don't actually know what people think about us unless they grab you by the neck and jam you against the wall and tell you how shit you are. You don't actually know what they're thinking about you. These assumptions are in our head. And Inside D&B says, ultimately, if you're working from the heart and shooting from the hip and laying your soul bare in the act of creativity, and all your being is real and honest and open and true, and your work is giving your soul satisfaction and peace, then others either loving it or hating it is incidental. If they hate it, whatever. If they love it, it's a bonus. That said, the feelings regarding whether or not you're doing a good enough job are never far from the surface. Everybody is a critic. I was given a great piece of advice from a great drum and bass DJ a year or so ago, which was, play to your strengths. Ultimately, we're all given at least one talent, and to lose that at the hands of imposter syndrome is just a waste. Fight through and overcome. Very, very wise words there. Thank you. I'm feeling inspired by that. I don't know about you lot. And I think this is Altum Flu Fiscal. says, I work as a registered nurse and I suffer from imposter syndrome. I've discussed it with many of my colleagues and it is very common amongst us. More music on the Gold Fat label now. This is Auris. Too hot to handle. And Snafu 660 says, I seriously think every last one of us has this. A bit like we're all on the spectrum. Just that now that's another podcast. Just that some show this more. Even my doctor agrees. As there's so many people I talk about it. I think that is a very, very, very good point there.
Well, we can't all be geniuses, can we? The successful criminal brain is always superior. It has to be. You cost me time, money, effort. You damage my organization. My pride.
This is A Audio on Liquid V. Who are you, Bros? Well, Bros was the Goss twins. And we are rolling right here on the Fast Soul Music podcast, and we are dissecting imposter syndrome. You guys are telling it like it is.
What do you know? Don't lie. Who's your lovers and who are your bros? Who's your lovers and who are your bros? Love to all those in the session. All of those who are living, don't lie. Who's your lovers and who are your bros? Who's your lovers and who are your bros? What do you know? Don't lie. Who's your lovers and who are your bros? nah. All of those do I live, oh yeah. Who's your lovers and who are your bros? Who's your lovers and who are your bros?
And Andrew F 1985 says he's got some advice here. Listen, Tony, for me, just keep putting yourself in uncomfortable situations. It's all experience. Talk in front of groups, get involved in conversations. Try not to react to negativity in any way, shape or form. The more you do it, you adapt. The sweaty palms and nervousness fades. And you start to realise a lot of people around you are going through exactly the same thing very often. We all have our own ways of covering our insecurities up. I used to be a nervous wreck around people, but I've learnt through repetition of experience that it gets better. Thank you, Andrew, and that is very, very true.
Who's your lovers and who are your bros? Who's your lovers and who are your bros?
The more you throw yourself in and do something that's uncomfortable, and you realise that your world has not ended as a result of doing it, then each time it gets very, very slightly more easy. And Peter Scott Creative from Liverpool says, I have always felt like I've got imposter syndrome. When people tell me that my art is good, in my head I think I'm a fraud. And that I've probably stolen the idea from somebody else.
Who's your lovers and who are your bros? Who's your lovers and who are your bros?
Incoming Submorpics and Satl. Dawn of the Rebirth from the Submorpics EP on North Quarter. A very fine EP, let's check this out. Brooding, I like it. I like the thread that's coming through some of these shouts as well from creative people like Peter Scott, because when we're putting ideas out there, we're more vulnerable to feeling like an imposter, because actually we just don't know. You know, we've had a bit of inspiration, enough to kind of make a piece of work that we think is pretty decent, but we don't actually know where that inspiration comes from, and maybe we're copying someone. Maybe there is a bit of fakery in it. Does that even matter? And JHJ Petman says, I felt this when I went to university. Had it reinforced by other people while I was there. Sometimes they would tell me that I wasn't enough intellectually, and because of where I came from. And then one of my professors told me that she had the same feelings, that it's normal, because no one knows what the fuck we're doing. I listened to her, and now I have a great job with the ambulance service. No one feels like they belong here. If anyone says they do, they're lying. I'm going to read that again. No one feels like they belong. If anyone says they do, they're lying. My advice is to just be yourself. You're there for a reason. Stick at it. By the way, Tony, it was great to meet you at the boat party last week. Oh, mate, you were there. That was a wicked party. Yeah, massive shout out to Ben and to Kate who organised it. They raised close to $2,500 for people affected by the war, the invasion in Ukraine. New music on Spearhead now. This is Kubiks, working with someone called S.O. I always wonder what letters like that stand for. Sharon Osbourne. Could be. It's a very fine tune called Celebrate.
Celebrating all night. I've been loaded, said I'm loaded. That's why we're celebrating all night. It's why we're celebrating all night, all night, all night, all night, all night long. I've been loaded, said I'm loaded. It's why we're celebrating all night.
I feel a bit bad. I feel this vocal is so catchy and such a good hook. I feel like I really should know who S.O. is, but I don't. Because it sounds like a proper kind of major label hit machine vocal. Produced in a really, really good way by Kubiks.
Loading up the scene, we gon' party till the morning. If they wanna see what we bout, then tell them falling. Saying that a change, I'm evolving. I am never playing, I'm sorry. I am not the same in a way. Look at how far we done traveled, where we came from. Look at how hard we done worked, we the same ones. Had to celebrate for the turf that we made up. Took us from the grave, now we lighten up the way, lighten up the way from the bottom to the stadiums. Look at how hard we done worked, man, we came up. Look at how far I done came with my day ones. Never lose hope, it's my only rule. Gotta keep them close when I'm on the move. Gotta thank God for we loading, gotta celebrate the way that we made it, though you know it. Hey, don't you know it? I fare well in the morning, but hate when I promote it. God knows I can't take these jokers. I need more than my focus, Lord knows.
And because this tune, the vocal is so strong, and I don't know who S.O. is, I feel like an imposter. And I'm going to put that on to Steve BC, who runs and owns Spearhead. You released this, you made me feel like an imposter, Steve. Do I overthink things? Just a little bit. brand new S.P.Y on Dark Matter, a brilliant EP of 4 tunes. This is called Life Is Just a Game. And Carlos S.P.Y for me is an example of a producer, an artist who doesn't have 1 ounce of imposter in him. That's only my view. You'd have to ask Carlos what he feels about that. Now, Ryan Rhodes sent a really long shout in. It's a bit too long to read all of it out, but the opening's quite powerful. Check it out. I felt like an imposter and doubted myself for most of my life, particularly when it came to voiceover work. I fell in love with voiceover when I realised I could earn a living from the voices that I put on for my mates. But I never committed to it, despite great feedback. I also wanted to train as a counsellor in order to help other people get through suffering, because I believe that no one should ever feel alone. But I never enrolled in training because I thought that I'd be judged as pretentious by my peers. And I thought clients wouldn't want to speak to me because I was not important. And he goes on to say, today I'm proud to say that I successfully run my own voiceover and creative agency that I'm enrolling to train as a sound therapist this year. My long-term plan is to use the money I raise from those 2 businesses to fund my psychotherapy training. I look forward to helping other humans break free of their limiting beliefs and go on to live authentic lives in which they feel empowered to achieve and create wonderful things. But most of all, I now believe in myself. Ryan went on a journey with his fear, with his feelings of imposter, and he kept turning up and he kept working at it, and he's come through the other side now. All power to you, Ryan.
It's just a game. Life is music.
Incoming, it's Hexa, Pressure on Dot Scott's 31 label. This is brilliant, check it out.
Bring forth the pressure.
And I get something with each of these shouts that you're sending in. It's quite remarkable. So Rob Mackay says, I think we all suffer imposter syndrome at some point in our lives to certain extents. Usually when our ego is feeling vulnerable and we feel a need to prove ourselves. That is massive. When our ego is feeling vulnerable and we need to prove ourselves. If we can learn to recognise those feelings as a sign that we need to step back, take a breath, and remember not to give so much of a shit because it could all be over tomorrow, then that usually helps, for me at least. Remembering that everybody suffers from it, however big and confident they appear at face value, definitely helps. We're all human, profoundly unique, and interconnected, with the same vulnerabilities deep inside us. That's lovely. You lot are brilliant, you know that.
Bring forth the pressure.
Sam Kratz Richardson says, I've been working in the IT industry for 20 plus years now, and I managed to work up to being an IT director. I still feel like I'm just a fresh-faced 20-year-old despite being at the top of the ladder at 40 years old. It's a very bizarre feeling being in charge, but constantly questioning every decision I make, and the only way I can get around it is to try and stop doubting myself and remember the positive feedback others have given me over the years. It's still more of a coping mechanism than a preventative fix, but it definitely does help.
Bring forth the pressure.
Alexander Zake says, hello Tony, shout out to all drum and bass lovers all around the world. Aye. Thank you for your work, it really helps me to pass through tough times. In the last 2 months, I moved to the other country, flew to a new home, new job. I need to learn a new language and only music didn't change in my lifestyle. Thank you for everything. Now, about imposter syndrome. I have 5+ years of graphic design experience, but still I think that I'm no good. Even now, I decline graphic design offers only because I'm afraid that I'm not good enough. Now, this is when imposter syndrome gets to be a problem, when it actually stops you from accepting things that other people give you, such as an offer of work because they like what you've done in the past.
Bring forth the pressure.
And sooner or later, you have to jump off that cliff. And take a big fucking risk. And the cliff is the cliff of your own fears. You jump off it because someone else has asked you to do work because they like what you're doing. They believe in you. No one's asking you or telling you that you have to believe in yourself. But just take a risk, because what's the worst that can happen? You're not going to die. Trust in other people, because let's face it, we don't really know anything. All we've got is what our brains tell us.
What's taking on so long, son?
So yeah, if a few people you trust tell you that you've got what it takes, go and do it. Even if you don't believe you've got what it takes, keep an open mind. This is new music by a new artist called Hound. It's called Small Talk on the excellent Four Corners label. Rob Newman says, yeah, definitely, imposter syndrome. I was a secondary music teacher back in the day and always questioned whether I was actually musical or knowledgeable enough. Now I've given that up to be a bike mechanic, and I still wonder if I know what I'm doing enough of the time. You see, I think it's really important to be able to admit that you wonder what you're doing half the time. I mean, I wonder what I'm doing nearly all the time. I just feel like I'm flailing around in the dark.
It was nasty, they was sharp, everything was like precise, man, the moves, the way they was stinking and all that. You know, one brother, he might run off and get into something, and something might happen to him. I come crazy like a tiger, so you know what I'm saying, nobody can even
Wheels of Steel by S.P.Y, incoming on Dark Matter. Let's have this. I'm absolutely loving what's going on in this tune. Incoming, a huge remix. Total Science, Squash, remixed by Break on CIA. This is massive. Oh yeah. And Squash is one of the biggest tunes by Total Science, who are one of the biggest acts in drum and bass. Foundation Business, remixed with Respect by Break. And Cos Billingham writes in and says, I don't think I've ever met anyone that hasn't suffered to it from some degree. It took about 9 years into a very specialist career for me to realise that actually nobody really feels like they know what they're doing, and everyone is coming to work hoping that nobody notices. That is brilliant. And then edit. In terms of overcoming it, it just took me time. I found I was reinforcing it with the small number of instances where I didn't immediately know something. But later on in my career, I started to be dropped into high-level meetings at a moment's notice. And actually, I was able to answer or advise off the top of my head. You know, that's absolutely massive, because I've found that the best way to overcome this feeling of fear of being an imposter is to look around a room and imagine there's a little label above each person's head that tells you what they're really thinking. Now, they might be frightened, they might be depressed, they might be worried, they might be all sorts of things going on in their lives. And to know that actually nobody else really knows what they're doing, that's a huge thing, to be able to surrender that. And to be honest with yourself, that because I know that I don't know what I'm doing right now with this podcast. I haven't got a clue what I'm doing. My brain tells me one thing, the opposite is true. Anyway, thank you so much for your participation. It's reassuring for me to know how many people feel the same as I do. So yes, despite the fact that we all kind of feel like fakes, we all feel like we don't know anything, we all feel like we're imposters some of the time, or even all the time. Let's just get on with it and do it anyway, and accept that we feel that way and that everybody else feels that way as well. I'm out of here. One love.